Here's something that's going to change how you think about your entire home theater setup. Most people are using eARC and Optical completely wrong, and the reason is not what you think. Some people swear by Optical because they believe digital audio is always the same quality regardless of the cable. Others spend extra money on eARC and assume they're automatically getting better sound from everything they watch. Both groups are wrong in ways that are genuinely surprising once you understand what's actually happening inside these connections. The real shock isn't that one is better than the other. The real shock is that for most of what most people actually watch, the difference is almost nothing, and for the specific content where the difference is enormous, almost nobody has their system set up to actually take advantage of it. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which connection you should be using, for which content, with which gear, and you'll probably realize something about your current setup that you'll want to change immediately. Subscribe and hit the like button before we get into it, and drop a comment telling me what connection you're currently using between your TV and your soundbar or receiver, and what made you choose it. Let's get into this properly. What these connections actually do, before we get into where people go wrong, we need a clear, honest explanation of what each of these connections actually does, without the marketing language that makes everything sound better than it is. Let's start with Optical, also called Toslink, the connection that uses a thin fiber cable and literally transmits audio as pulses of light. Optical has been around since the 1980s, and it was genuinely impressive technology when it was introduced. It's still perfectly functional today for specific use cases. But here's the hard truth about Optical. It has a very limited bandwidth of roughly 0.384 megabits per second for audio, and that limitation is a hard ceiling that cannot be overcome regardless of how expensive the cable is or what equipment you're using. Within that ceiling, Optical can carry stereo PCM, which is standard 2-channel audio, and it can carry compressed 5.1 surround formats like Dolby Digital and eARC. What it absolutely cannot carry under any circumstances is Dolby Atmos in any form. Lossless audio formats like Dolby True HD or eARC HD Master Audio, or multi-channel uncompressed audio. Optical hard blocks all of those formats, and it does so silently, meaning your system doesn't announce that it's dropping the advanced audio. It just falls back to whatever compressed format fits within the available bandwidth. HDMI eARC, which stands for Audio Return Channel, was introduced as a smarter solution that uses the same HDMI cable already connecting your TV to your receiver or soundbar to also carry audio back in the other direction. Regular HDMI carries video and audio from your source to the TV. eARC lets the TV send audio back down that same cable to your sound system, eliminating the need for a separate audio cable entirely. eARC supports everything Optical does, and it adds a crucial capability: compressed Dolby Atmos delivered via Dolby Digital Plus, which is the format streaming services like Netflix, Disney Plus, and Amazon use when they offer Atmos. So with eARC, you can actually get Dolby Atmos from streaming apps, which Optical cannot deliver at all. eARC also adds SEC control, which is what allows your TV remote to adjust your soundbar's volume, and it handles lip sync metadata better than Optical does. The bandwidth of eARC is around 1 megabit per second for audio, which is meaningfully higher than Optical, but still limited enough that it cannot carry lossless audio formats. eARC, the Enhanced Audio Return Channel, is where the picture changes dramatically. eARC has approximately 37 megabits per second of audio bandwidth, which is more than 30 times what standard eARC supports. That bandwidth is what unlocks lossless Dolby True HD, DEETS, HD Master Audio, full object-based Atmos from Blu-ray discs, and uncompressed multi-channel LPCM audio up to 7.1 channels. If Optical is a single-lane road and eARC is a 2-lane road, eARC is a 10-lane highway. And that's not an exaggeration. The actual bandwidth numbers justify exactly that analogy. The surprising truth about streaming. Now here's the part that genuinely surprises most people, and it's the core insight that reframes this entire conversation. For the vast majority of what most people actually watch, which is streaming content from Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon, Apple TV Plus, and similar services, eARC and regular ARC deliver essentially the same audio quality. This is not a small asterisk or a minor caveat. This is the defining reality of how most home theater systems are used in 2026. Here's why. Streaming services deliver Dolby Atmos using a format called Dolby Digital Plus, which is a compressed version of the Atmos format. Dolby Digital Plus Atmos is a genuinely good sounding format. It's significantly better than standard Dolby Digital, and it absolutely qualifies as real Atmos in the sense that it includes the spatial audio data that drives height effects and object-based positioning. But it is compressed, and crucially, it fits within the bandwidth of standard ARC without any issue. So when you watch a Netflix Atmos movie with your AV receiver connected via ARC, you're receiving the same Dolby Digital Plus Atmos stream that eARC would deliver. There is no extra audio quality hidden in ARC that ARC couldn't carry for this content, because the content itself is already compressed to a level both connections handle identically. This means that if you're primarily a streaming viewer and you've been running standard ARC, you haven't been missing anything in terms of audio quality. And if you've been using Optical instead of ARC, you've actually been missing Atmos entirely without knowing it, which is a much more significant gap than the ARC versus eARC difference for streaming content. The wrong assumption people make is that eARC automatically upgrades the sound quality of everything they watch. It doesn't. What eARC does is remove a ceiling that only matters when your source content is already above that ceiling. For streaming, that ceiling doesn't come into play. For lossless physical media and high bitrate files, it matters enormously. The connection doesn't improve your audio. It either allows the full quality of your audio through, or it doesn't. Where eARC actually makes a real difference, so when does eARC actually change what you hear? The answer is specific. When your source content contains a lossless or high bitrate audio track that neither Optical nor ARC can carry. The clearest example is a 4K Blu-ray disc. When a studio mixes a film for Blu-ray, the Dolby Atmos track on that disc uses Dolby True HD encoding, which is lossless. That means the audio data on the disc is bit for bit identical to the master recording used in the mixing studio. A True HD Atmos track can use bitrates up to 18 megabits per second, which is far above what ARC's 1 megabit ceiling can handle, and approximately 50 times what Optical supports. What happens when you try to play that lossless True HD Atmos track and your TV to audio system connection is Optical or standard ARC? The TV is receiving the full lossless track from your Blu-ray player through the HDMI input. But when it tries to relay that audio to your soundbar or receiver, the connection can only carry compressed formats. So the TV essentially downgrades the audio to a compressed Dolby Digital 5.1 or Dolby Digital Plus track before sending it out, stripping the lossless quality entirely. You're playing the same disc, the same film, through the same speaker system, but you're losing the height channels, the full object-based spatial information, and the lossless detail that makes the difference between a theatrical quality soundtrack and a good but compressed version of it. And nothing tells you this is happening. The movie still plays. The sound still comes out. It just isn't the full sound that's actually on the disc. With eARC in place, that lossless True HD Atmos track flows through intact. The 37 megabit bandwidth of eARC comfortably handles the 18 megabit ceiling of True HD without breaking a sweat. Your receiver or soundbar receives the complete, uncompressed, lossless Atmos stream and decodes it properly, delivering the full height effects and object-based spatial audio exactly as the sound designers intended. This is the scenario where eARC transforms the listening experience from good to genuinely reference quality cinema audio. The same principle applies to gaming. A PlayStation 5 or high-end gaming PC can output multi-channel LPCM audio, which is uncompressed multi-channel audio, or Atmos spatial audio for compatible games. If your connection between the TV and your sound system is optical, that LPCM is forced down to compressed 5.1. eARC carries it cleanly without any downgrade, which directly impacts positional accuracy and dynamic range in games where sound design and spatial awareness genuinely matter. The common wrong setups people have Let's talk through the specific incorrect combinations people commonly run, because understanding these makes the right approach immediately obvious. The first wrong setup is having an eARC capable TV connected to an ARC only soundbar via what the person believes is an eARC connection. The chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and if the soundbar only supports ARC, the entire connection operates at ARC capability regardless of what the TV supports. You're not getting eARC just because your TV has the port. Both endpoints need to support it, and the cable needs to be rated to carry it. The second wrong setup is having a high-end Atmos AV receiver capable of decoding true HD, connected to an eARC capable TV, but using an optical cable between the TV and the receiver. This is particularly frustrating because all the expensive hardware on both ends is capable of the full experience, but the optical cable in the middle silently blocks everything above basic compressed 5.1. The receiver never gets the lossless audio it can decode because the TV can't send it through optical. This setup sounds good because the receiver and speakers are excellent, but it's consistently leaving the best audio formats on the table. The third wrong setup is running a gaming console into the TV and then using optical from the TV to the soundbar for gaming sessions. The console might be outputting beautiful uncompressed LPCM or Atmos data to the TV over HDMI, but the optical connection from TV to soundbar can't forward any of it, forcing everything back down to compressed 5.1 and eliminating positional accuracy that competitive gamers especially would genuinely notice and appreciate. The key insight connecting all three of these mistakes is exactly the same. The weakest link in the audio chain determines what you actually hear. You can have an extraordinary receiver, exceptional speakers, and a premium Atmos-capable soundbar, but if there's an optical or ARC limited connection anywhere between your source and your speakers, those capabilities are irrelevant for any content that exceeds that connection's capability. Optical still has its place. To be completely fair to optical, it's not a bad connection for every situation. For a basic soundbar connected to a cable TV box, or for a setup where the primary source is standard definition streaming with no Atmos content, optical carries everything the system actually needs. The connection's limitations only become relevant when your content and hardware can both exceed those limitations. If you're running a modest soundbar without Atmos support and watching primarily network television or basic streaming, optical works fine and causes no meaningful degradation in your listening experience. Optical also has a specific advantage worth acknowledging. It's completely electrically isolated, meaning it carries no electrical signal at all since it uses light. This makes it immune to ground loop issues, which are a type of electrical interference that can sometimes cause a low-level hum through speakers in certain setups with multiple devices sharing electrical ground paths. In a system where ground loop noise is a real problem, optical can actually provide cleaner audio in practice than an HDMI connection in the same setup, because it physically cannot carry electrical interference. This is a niche advantage, but it's a real one for the specific scenarios where it applies. The reason to move away from optical isn't that it's fundamentally bad. It's that modern content and modern equipment consistently exceed its ceiling, and the gap between what optical delivers and what your system is capable of grows larger as the quality of your source material and hardware improves. How to decide what you actually need? Let's make this practical with clear scenario-based guidance. Because the right answer genuinely depends on how you use your system rather than which connection has the most impressive specifications on paper. If you're primarily a streaming viewer who watches Netflix, Disney+, Amazon, and similar services through your TV's built-in apps, and you have a soundbar or receiver that supports Atmos, then HDMI ARC is actually your most important upgrade over optical. eARC versus ARC doesn't make a meaningful difference for this content, but ARC versus optical is significant because ARC gives you compressed Atmos from streaming apps, while optical gives you nothing above basic 5.1. If you have a 4K Blu-ray player or regularly play high bitrate local files with True HD or DTS HDMA audio tracks, Then eARC becomes genuinely necessary if you're routing audio through your TV on the way to your sound system. In this scenario, using anything less than eARC is consistently throwing away the best part of the audio you paid for on those discs. If your receiver or soundbar is connected directly to your Blu-ray player via HDMI rather than routing through the TV to sound system connection becomes less critical for that source. But eARC still handles the TV's own apps and streaming content alongside the direct connection. If you're a serious gamer using a current generation console, or a gaming PC with Atmos-enabled games and uncompressed LPCM output, eARC directly improves the spatial accuracy and detail of your gaming audio in ways that both optical and standard ARC simply cannot deliver. For this specific use case, eARC paired with a receiver capable of processing LPCM7. Warner Atmos is the combination that extracts the full audio capability of current gaming hardware. And if you have a budget soundbar that only supports compressed formats, upgrading from optical to ARC provides meaningful benefit for Atmos streaming, but eARC provides no additional benefit because the soundbar itself is the limiting factor. In this situation, focus on getting ARC working properly and save any upgrade budget for the soundbar itself when you're ready to step up. The settings that make or break any connection, one more critical point that ties all of this together, the physical connection you use is only as good as the settings you configure on both the TV and your sound system. You can have a perfect eARC cable in the correct port on both devices and still end up with compressed or downgraded audio if your TV's audio output setting is set to PCM instead of bitstream or auto. The TV will quietly convert everything to basic stereo PCM before sending it out, overriding the connection's capability entirely. Make sure your TV's audio output is set to bitstream, auto, or pass-through rather than PCM. Confirm that eARC is specifically enabled in your TV's advanced audio settings if there's a dedicated toggle for it, because some TVs require both the general output setting and a separate eARC enable switch to be correctly configured. And verify your sound system's input is set to receive from the eARC port specifically rather than defaulting to a different input. These settings take 2 minutes to check, and they determine whether your connection actually performs at its rated capability or silently operates at a fraction of it. The best cable and the correct port mean nothing if the software configuration is telling your TV to compress everything before it leaves the device. Here's the complete picture. Optical works for basic 5.1 and stereo, but hard blocks Atmos and lossless audio in ways your system will never announce. Standard ARC adds compressed Atmos from streaming apps and better integration with your TV, making it a meaningful step up from optical for streaming setups. eARC unlocks the full lossless audio capability of physical media, local high bitrate files, and gaming hardware, but only matters when your content and source equipment actually generate those lossless formats. For most streaming-only viewers, the ARC to eARC jump is smaller than expected. For disc enthusiasts and serious gamers, eARC isn't optional if you want the full experience your hardware is capable of delivering. And in every case, the weakest link in your audio chain sets the ceiling for what you actually hear. So one wrong cable or one wrong setting silently limits everything, regardless of how good the rest of your equipment is. Check your current connection right now. Look at what your TV's audio output setting actually says. See if your soundbar's display shows what format it's actually receiving. There's a very good chance you'll find something you want to change. If this video shifted how you think about these connections, hit that like button and share it with someone who's been confused about which cable to use. Drop a comment telling me what you found when you checked your own setup. I want to hear what people discover. And subscribe if you haven't already, because there's more content like this coming that will help you get the most out of the system you already have. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.